At the beginning of the movie, Cynthia is in a classroom where she finds a book, and when she opens it, she sees Larry's name written inside. As she turns the pages, she comes across a message. "Help me, the wolf has me." And suddenly, Cynthia hears Larry calling for help. Following the voice, she moves toward its source and finds an entity in an office, the one who has locked Larry inside a cage. Cynthia tells Larry that he's free to leave, saying the door is open. When Larry shakes his head, she reminds him that only he can let himself out. The entity warns her not to talk to him, but Cynthia tells Larry that the entity has no power over him and that he just needs to realize it. As Larry tries to leave the cage, the entity turns towards Cynthia, shattering a glass and injuring her. As it starts crawling toward her, Cynthia calmly assures Larry that it's okay and they'll try again next time. Enraged, the entity growls, but Cynthia begins reciting something under her breath, and in the next moment, she snaps back to the real world. She tells Larry that they're back and reassures him that he's safe. When Larry notices the cut on her arm and apologizes, Cynthia says it's okay, adding that their time is up for today, but he's welcome to stay as long as he likes. Later, Cynthia asks her daughter Jordan if she can find out which physical education teachers Larry had between 4th and 12th grade. Larry asks Jordan if she has ever tried it, to which she replies that she's been training, but hasn't had any success yet. She then reveals that both her parents had the ability, and they mastered it together, and it's how they found each other. Later, a girl comes to their door, saying she urgently needs to speak with Cynthia. Jordan lets her in and asks if she's with someone, to which she explains that her dad is on his way, but she needs to talk to Cynthia before he arrives. Jordan says if she's in danger, she can help, but the girl insists she just needs to speak to Cynthia. Noticing marks on her arms, Jordan asks what happened, but when the girl stays silent, Jordan explains that she can't let her talk to Cynthia without first doing an assessment. The girl introduces herself as Riley and says she's 14 and a woman named Agatha told her dad that Cynthia could help someone like her. Jordan asks what she means, to which Riley says she sees a dark figure, something like a person, but not quite, and it stares at her like a starving dog. Jordan asks if it ever speaks to her, and Riley says it always says the same thing. Jordan then asks if it's here right now, and Riley nods. Jordan asks if she can point to it, and Riley points to a corner of the room. Jordan then asks where she got the scars, but Riley, clearly terrified, says, "It's standing right behind me, and I can feel it's very hungry." Sensing that something is wrong, Cynthia comes out and freezes in fear when she sees the entity. Just then, Riley's dad, Randall, rushes in and insists they don't need any help. Riley protests Cynthia can help them, but despite her pleas, he forces her to leave with him. Later, Jordan asks her mom what's going on and whether they should call the police, to which Cynthia replies that they don't need to involve the police, as there's nothing they or the police can do for Riley. When Jordan presses her to explain, Cynthia says that something terrible is attached to the girl. Jordan argues that if she saw it, doesn't that mean she can help? To which Cynthia asks, "Do you know why you do screenings before I meet with any clients?" Jordan answers, "To assess their psychological needs and to protect them." And Cynthia adds, "And to protect us." Jordan says, "You're the only one who can help that girl." But Cynthia replies that she's not going to involve herself with whatever is attached to her. Jordan responds, "Dad would have helped," to which Cynthia says, "That's why your dad's not here anymore." Later, Cynthia speaks to Jordan calmly, saying, "Today scared me, and it reminded her of her father because the woman he tried to help had something attached to her, and he couldn't let it go." Jordan replies, "That's because he cared about people, and that's what made him who he was." Cynthia responds, "Whatever was attached to that girl today isn't the same as what we deal with." Jordan counters, "That's even more reason to help her." But Cynthia says it's more reason not to. She explains, if she told Riley's father that his daughter has something attached to her, he'd turn on them, just like everyone did back in Elmsborough. She asks, does she remember how bad it got? Then adds that after they moved, she promised herself she would never let that happen again. She explains that the world believes in science, not in spirits, and one day when she can see things for what they are, she hopes she will know when to help and when to protect themselves. The next morning, Jordan tells Cynthia that she's going to meet her friends, and after Jordan leaves, Cynthia opens her notebook, revealing a sketch of the entity she saw attached to Riley. Next, we see Jordan meeting Agatha and asking if she knows Riley Harris, to which Agatha replies that she doesn't think so. Jordan then mentions that Riley said she heard Agatha speaking to her father, suggesting that Cynthia might be able to help her. Agatha recalls Randall Harris from Kenilworth, whose wife died last year. Jordan expresses her concern for the girl, saying that anything Agatha knows might help, to which Agatha shares that she noticed some scars on Riley, and Randall said they were self-inflicted, so she gave him Cynthia's card, though she didn't explain exactly what Cynthia does. Meanwhile, Cynthia speaks to John, requesting that he keep an eye on a suspect named Doug Ferry. John comments that she's good at getting hunches, but she never provides him with a reason or a source. Cynthia asks him to check if there's anything on his record. John finds the record and asks what she wants him to do with this, to which Cynthia says she just knows he's a terrible man and just keep an eye on him. Later, Cynthia searches through her books, trying to find information about the entity, but the memories of it scare her deeply. Staring at her husband's photo, she says, "I've never felt an entity this strong before, so I can't help Riley." Meanwhile, Jordan meets Randall, who thanks her for coming but insists his daughter doesn't need a shrink and says he has it under control. Jordan says she thinks Riley needs someone who can see what she sees, to which Randall turns to her and asks, "What exactly does Riley tell her she sees?" Jordan replies, "Enough to get an idea of what she's going through," to which Randall says she doesn't know them or what they have been through, and suggests she mind her own business. Jordan starts scanning the area around the house, and when she peeks into the basement, she spots Riley down there. Desperate to help, Jordan sneaks into the house and approaches a door, thinking it leads to the basement. However, when she opens it, she discovers it's just a closet. Confused, she turns to leave, but then hears a voice, and when she pulls the clothes aside, she finds a hidden door behind them. Jordan quickly rushes back to grab a screwdriver and returns to the wardrobe. She uses the screwdriver to open the latch and finally manages to unlock the door. Jordan enters the basement and calls out to Riley, saying she's just there to talk to her. Just then, she hears a voice coming from behind a door and tries to call out to her mom, but suddenly the door opens. Riley says, "Dad doesn't lock me down here. He locks them down here." Jordan asks, "Who is them?" But only then she gets a call from her mother, and suddenly Randall knocks her down, and then disconnects the call. Just then, Agatha calls Cynthia, saying she was just checking to see if Jordan had spoken with Randall. Cynthia asks, "Who's Randall?" To which Agatha explains that Jordan had stopped by earlier, asking about his daughter. Confused, Cynthia asks, "What daughter? And what exactly did Jordan say?" To which Agatha replies, "She said a girl had stopped by their house last night, and she just wanted to talk to her." Meanwhile, Jordan regains consciousness and finds herself tied to a chair, and to her horror, she sees another woman tied to a chair beside her. Frightened, she calls out for help, but Randall enters the room and demands her password. Jordan pleads that she only wants to help his daughter, but Randall says no one can, explaining past attempts always ended with child services trying to take Riley. Jordan insists her mom can help, but Randall replies that no one could help Riley, just like no one could help his wife. Jordan promises they can figure out what the entity wants and get it to leave them alone, to which Randall says they already know what it wants, and explains that Riley has to feed it, or else it will feed on her. Riley then steps closer to Jordan and quietly says, "I'm sorry," before placing her hand on Jordan's shoulder, and instantly, the entity appears behind Jordan. It grabs her, overwhelming her with immense pain, and after a moment, as soon as Riley pulls her hand away, the entity retreats. Randall tells Riley she did a good job and instructs her to go upstairs. Meanwhile, Cynthia and Agatha are driving to Randall's house, and Cynthia worries Jordan might be in trouble. But Agatha reads a text from Jordan saying she's just with friends. Cynthia, unconvinced, says that's not like her, pointing out they had plans. Randall urges Riley to hurry and get Jordan into the truck. Riley asks if they can see if her mom can help, but Randall says Jordan is different, so people will come looking, and if they find her, they'll take you away. Riley grabs pliers and leaves saying she needs to get her backpack. Riley returns to the basement and asks Jordan if Cynthia really saw it, to which Jordan says yes, and promises that if she lets her out, she can take her to her, Riley says. Cynthia can't get her dad in trouble, explaining that he's just trying to protect her. She adds that if Cynthia can make her better, then her dad can become a good person again. After this, she hands the pliers to Jordan and says she will try to keep her dad busy outside. Meanwhile, Randall realizes that Riley took the pliers, and Jordan tries to cut the zip tie, but the pliers slip from her hands. Desperate to free herself, she applies more force and manages to break the zip tie. She then picks up the pliers again, frees the woman, and rushes to get help. But Randall confronts her, pointing a rifle at her. Jordan says he doesn't need to do this and that Riley needs help. Just then, Riley comes running in and says she can help them, insisting he can't keep hurting people and that she doesn't want to be part of this anymore. Randall orders her to move, but the woman suddenly lunges at him, and in the chaos, Riley is shot. Just then, Jordan's head begins to spin, and after a moment, she sees the horrifying entity right in front of her. It suddenly grabs her face, causing Riley to experience terrifying visions, and after a short while, Jordan snaps back to consciousness and runs away from the scene. Agatha and Cynthia find Jordan on the road just outside Randall's house, while Randall flees the scene in his truck. Later, John tells Cynthia that Riley's body was taken to Common Grove Hospital, where staff who knew her are shaken. He adds that forensics found more remains, meaning the killer's been active for a while, and Jordan was lucky to escape. Agatha asks, "Has they found Randall?" To which John says not yet, but they will find him. He also mentions Cynthia's hunch about Doe was likely right, saying they've brought him in for questioning after spotting troubling behavior on surveillance. Meanwhile, Jordan is questioned about the sores on her arms, to which she says Randall attacked her, and she thinks the marks are from struggling. When asked if it happened after he fired the rifle, Jordan says yes, and explains she punched him and escaped. An officer adds that forensics found remains under the woodshed, calling it one of the worst crime scenes ever, and says she is their best lead to finding Randall. As Jordan looks up, she suddenly sees the entity again and begins screaming in terror, but the entity vanishes, and Jordan, shaken, says she thinks she needs to go home. Once home, Jordan tells Cynthia that she's seeing it, but Cynthia says she's just been through a traumatic experience. Jordan insists that Riley died in her arms, and she saw it leave Riley and she can still feel it, but Cynthia says she would sense it if it were really there. Jordan pleads with her to look inside her, but Cynthia refuses. Jordan says she knows she is afraid of seeing Dad, saying they share the same trauma, and it doesn't matter if she looks or not. It's not gonna stop. Cynthia remains silent, and Jordan, hurt and frustrated, calls her a coward before leaving. Agatha tells Cynthia that a smart woman once said the only way to overcome fear is to face it. She points out that she spent years helping others, but never herself, and whatever she's afraid to confront, she's already survived worse. Agatha adds that Jordan needs her now. Cynthia tells Agatha to wake her if she struggles, then warns Jordan that if an entity is attached to her, it will target the weakest, most painful part of her mind. She then touches her forehead and closes her eyes, and in the next moment, she finds herself inside Jordan's mind. There, she sees a newspaper clipping that reads, "Therapist pushes woman to suicide, claims there's a demon inside." Cynthia turns around, closes her eyes, and recites something, and in the next moment, she finds herself outside her house. There, she sees young Jordan and asks if she wants to come inside with her. Jordan shakes her head, and Cynthia gently assures her that it's okay. Just then, a man throws a bottle at the window and walks away without saying a word. As Cynthia turns to enter the house, Jordan stops her, but she reassures her, saying it's going to be okay. Cynthia enters the house, but as she moves toward the stairs, she senses the presence of the entity, which unnerves her, and suddenly, the entity attacks, causing her arm to burn. Agatha tries to wake her up and slaps her to bring her back. Cynthia tells her that a shake would have sufficed, to which Agatha apologizes, saying she panicked. Later, Cynthia thanks Agatha for being there and asks if she could stay a bit longer, as she needs to do something and doesn't want Jordan to be alone if she wakes up. Cynthia visits the hospital, where Larry asks what she's doing there, to which she explains that she needs his help to find information about the doctor who treated a woman with the last name Harris. Larry checks the records and says he remembers Samantha Harris, because it was a huge deal at the hospital, something like a flesh-eating disease. He mentions that Dr. Whitaker was the lead on the case, but he retired. Cynthia meets with Whitaker and explains that she has a client who may have an illness similar to Samantha Harris's. She asks what he can tell her about Samantha, to which Whitaker tells her that she came in with her husband and daughter, and she deteriorated very quickly. After 2 weeks, her hair fell out, then her teeth and nails. It was like she was rotting, both inside and out. Cynthia asks if Samantha ever said anything about what she thought it could be, to which Whitaker explains that, about 3 weeks in, Samantha noticed how distraught he was. One night, near the end, she asked him to come closer and whispered,
"Something has me. It's here with us right now. It's hungry. I can show you."
She reached out her hand and told him.
Don't be scared. It's worse if you're afraid.
When she grabbed his hand, Whitaker says he could feel it, like every part of his body was being pulled toward her. She needed him to understand that this was beyond anything medicine could fix, and it was her way of saying thank you for trying. Whitaker then shows Cynthia the marks on his arm, explaining that after that night, he couldn't bring himself to go back in. Samantha's daughter stayed with her during her final days and held her hand until she passed. Cynthia asks if he believes something was really with Samantha, to which Whitaker says he hopes she understands why he can't answer that directly, but adds that if her client is suffering from the same symptoms, she's better off being helped by someone like her than someone like him. Meanwhile, Jordan has a dream where she finds herself walking toward an attic, and as she steps closer, the entity whispers, "Feed me." Jordan says no, to which the entity attacks her, but she jolts awake, realizing it was just a nightmare. However, just then, the door of her room creaks open. Agatha suddenly wakes up hearing a noise and thinking Cynthia has returned. She looks around, but when she doesn't see anyone, she settles back down and starts reading her book. Meanwhile, when Jordan comes out of her room, looking for her mom, she hears someone's voice, but when she looks in that direction, no one is there, though we see the entity lurking right behind her. Jordan comes downstairs and heads to the kitchen, where she finds the sketch of the entity that Cynthia had drawn. Just then, she hears a noise and sees the entity emerging from behind the fridge. But suddenly, Randall attacks her. Cynthia returns home to find Agatha on the floor. She wakes her up and asks what happened, to which Agatha weakly says someone was there. Cynthia rushes to check on Jordan's room and finds her missing. She runs outside, screaming that Jordan is gone, prompting the officer to call for backup. Randall brings Jordan into the woods inside a box, and as he sets the box down, Jordan regains consciousness. Panicked, she screams for help and manages to push open the lid, but Randall tells her not to move and presses a shovel against her neck to silence her. Terrified, Jordan pleads, saying he doesn't have to do this and that she never meant for Riley to get hurt. Randall replies that this isn't about Riley, or even about her, but about it. He says she held Riley when she died, and now it's inside her, and now no one is going to be around when she dies, so it will either starve or return to wherever it came from. He then closes the lid and secures it, while Jordan continues screaming and pleading for him to let her out. Ignoring her cries, Randall throws the box into a pit and begins shoveling soil over it, and after a moment, he finally buries her. Later, an officer informs John that Randall Harris has turned himself in, and when Cynthia sees him, she immediately asks where Jordan is, but Randall remains silent. Cynthia urges John to let her speak to Randall, but he says it's against protocol. She insists, saying this is about her daughter, and that minutes from now they could know where Jordan is. But if she doesn't talk to him, they might never find her. She says he knows she can do this, but John says sorry to her and leaves. Meanwhile, Jordan finds the torch that had been left in the box and tries to find a way out. But just then, she hears the entity's voice, and to her horror, she sees it crawling over her, causing her to scream in terror. John asks the officer, "What's going on with Doe?" And the officer says he thinks they just found the 2 Sawyer kids who went missing last year. John then returns to Cynthia and says she's not going to have much time in there. Cynthia asks Randall where Jordan is, but he says it won't hurt anyone else. Cynthia places her fingers on his forehead and begins reciting something, and in the next moment, she finds herself inside his mind. There, she sees Riley crying over her mother's dead body, while Randall stands outside the door. Cynthia closes her eyes again, and after a while, she gets teleported to the woods, where she sees Randall burying Jordan. Randall turns to her and says she has to leave her, ordering Cynthia to get out of his head, which forces her to snap back to reality. Randall tells her she can't find Jordan, saying she has to die. Meanwhile, the entity tells Jordan to feed it as it crawls closer and then grabs her face, beginning to feed on her. Cynthia drives toward the woods, and Agatha asks, "Shouldn't we call the police and let them know?" But Cynthia replies, the police can't help her. After driving a bit farther, Cynthia finally reaches the spot. She and Agatha begin digging the ground, while the police, following fresh tire tracks, also start moving in their direction. Cynthia finally locates Jordan, but is horrified when she sees the entity, which disappears the next moment. She tries to wake Jordan and tells Agatha that she's alive but weak. Agatha hears police sirens and calls out to them, but Cynthia stops her, explaining that Jordan doesn't have much time and she needs to handle this here. She tells Agatha that she needs her to go and distract the police, because if they separate them, she won't be able to help Jordan. As Agatha goes to distract the police, Cynthia enters Jordan's mind, where she finds Jordan sitting outside the house, and she tells her to stay there. Cynthia goes up to the attic, where she finds her husband's lifeless body hanging, and meanwhile, Jordan also enters the house. Cynthia encounters the entity there, and filled with fury, demands that it leave Jordan alone, offering herself in Jordan's place. The entity moves toward her, saying, "Feed me," and as it gets closer, it suddenly attacks her. However, Cynthia raises her hand, places her fingers on its forehead, and begins reciting something, before the scene cuts abruptly. Next, Cynthia experiences terrifying visions, and realizes she is trapped inside the entity's mind. Frightened, she gets up and scans her surroundings, and after a while, she finds a spear lying nearby and picks it up. Trembling, she cautiously moves forward until she reaches a place where the entity is seated on its throne. As Cynthia approaches, the entity says, "Feed me," to which she replies, "You're hungry, we get it." And in response, the entity rises from its throne and steps down toward her. Jordan also enters the attic and sees her father's lifeless body hanging there. And meanwhile, John finds Cynthia and tries to wake her up. Hearing his voice, Cynthia gets distracted and, to her horror, realizes the entity has vanished. She starts searching for it, but soon vines emerge from behind the throne, grabbing her and pulling her to the ground. The vines then wrap tightly around her arms and legs as the entity reappears. Jordan finds Cynthia and removes her hand from the entity's forehead, but is confused when she sees that it doesn't work. The entity crawls towards Cynthia, and she pleads with it to take her and leave Jordan alone. But before the entity can feed on Cynthia, Jordan calls out, "Feed on this," and drives the spear into its head, revealing that she has powers like her mother. Jordan frees Cynthia, who tells her they have to finish it here now. They grab nearby weapons and attack the entity together, eventually managing to kill it. And as the battle ends, Cynthia pulls Jordan close and calms her down, saying it's over. 6 months later, Cynthia enters Jordan's mind again and asks how she's feeling today, to which Jordan nods in response. Cynthia leads her into the house, and when they reach the attic stairs, she tells Jordan to continue only if she's ready. Jordan climbs the stairs and reaches the attic, where she finds her father's lifeless body. Cynthia watches as Jordan gently removes the noose from around his neck, and in the next moment, her father's body disappears. Cynthia tells Jordan that she is proud of her, saying, "Now you do me," to which Jordan laughs and replies, "No way I'm ready for that." They then hug tightly, and the movie ends there.